Eeg, I said to her. Not even close. I learned my stroke at the downtown Y. You persevere. She kept her smile turned on nicely. You're in good shape. Whatever my stroke is called, it sure feels good tonight. After all those hours cooped up in that room, those boxy little windows that don't open. If they had big windows, all anybody would think about is escaping to the beach. They'd never get any work done anywhere in the state of Florida. Are we getting any work done? I asked Jessie. She laughed. I had a friend who believed in the doing the best you can theory of police work. I'm doing the best I can, under impossible circumstances. How about you? I'm doing the best I can too, I said. Praise the Lord. Jessie Flanagan raised both her arms joyously. Her exuberance surprised me. It was funny, and it felt good to laugh for a change. Real good. Real necessary. Under the circumstances, I'm doing the best I can, I added. Under the circumstances, praise the Lord. Jessie raised her voice again. She was funny. Or it was late, or both of the above. You going to catch a bite? I asked her. I wanted to hear her thoughts about the case. I really hadn't talked to her before. I'd like to eat something, she answered. I've skipped 2 meals already today. We agreed to meet up in the hotel's dining room, which was one of those slow-spinning affairs on the top floor. She changed in about 5 minutes, which I found impressive. Baggy tan trousers, a V-necked T-shirt, black Chinese slippers. Her blonde hair was still wet. She'd combed it back, and it looked good that way. She didn't wear makeup, and didn't need to. She seemed so different from the way she acted on the job, much looser and at ease. In all honesty and fairness, I have to tell you one thing. She was laughing. What's the one thing? Well, you're a strong but really clunky swimmer. On the other hand, you do look good in a bathing suit. Both of us laughed. Some of the long day's tension began to drain away. We were good at drawing each other out over beers and a snack. A lot of that was due to the peculiar circumstances, the stress and pressure of the past few days. It's also part of my job to draw people out, and I like the challenge. I got Jessie Flanagan to admit that she'd once been Miss Washington, D.C., back when she was 18. She'd been in a sorority at the University of Virginia, but got kicked out for inappropriate behavior, a phrase that I loved. As we talked, though, I was surprised that I was telling her much more than I'd expected to. She was easy to talk to. Jessie asked about my early days as a psychologist in Washington. It was mostly a bad mistake, I told her, without getting into how angry it had made me, still made me. A whole lot of people didn't want any part of a black shrink. Too many black people couldn't afford one. There are no liberals on the psychiatrist's couch. She got me to talk about Maria, but only a little bit. She told me how it was to be a woman in the 90% macho male Secret Service. They like to test me, about once a day. They call me the man. She also had some entertaining war stories about the White House. She knew the Bushes and the Reagans. All in all, it was a comfortable hour that went by too quickly. Actually, more than an hour had passed. More like 2 hours. Jessie finally noticed our waitress hovering all by her lonesome near the bar. Shoot! We are the last ones in this restaurant. We paid our bill and got on the local elevator down from the spinning top restaurant. Jessie's room was on the higher floor. She probably had a view of the ocean, too, from her suite. That was real nice, I said at her stop. I think that's a snappy line out of an old Coward play. Thanks for the company. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Alex, Jessie smiled. She tucked her blonde hair behind her ear, which was a tic of hers I'd noticed before. That was nice. Unfortunately, tomorrow probably won't be. Jessie pecked my cheek and went off to her room. I'm going to dream about you in swimsuits, she said, as the elevator doors closed. I went down 4 more floors, where I took my Christmas cold shower, alone in my Christmas hotel room. I thought about Jessie Flanagan. Dumb fantasies in a lonely Miami Beach hotel room. We sure weren't going anywhere together, but I liked her. I kind of felt that I could talk to her about anything. I read some more about Styron's bout with depression until I could sleep. I had some dreams of my own. Chapter 21. Careful. Be oh so careful now, Gary boy. Gary Sinigi watched the fat woman out of the extreme corner of his left eye. He watched the blubbery blob the way a lizard watches an insect, just before mealtime. She had no idea that he was studying her. She was a policewoman, so to speak, as well as a toll collector at exit 12 on the turnpike. She slowly counted out his change. She was enormous, black as the night, completely out of it. Asleep at the switch. Sinigi thought she looked like Aretha Franklin would have if Aretha couldn't sing a note and she had to make it in the real workaday world. She didn't have a clue as to who was riding by in the monotonous stream of holiday traffic, even though she and all her cohorts were supposed to be desperately searching for him. So much for massive police dragnets and your basic nationwide manhunt. What a fucking letdown and disappointment. How could they possibly expect to catch him with people like this in the hunt? At least they could try to keep it interesting for him. Sometimes, especially at times like this, Gary Sinigi wanted to proclaim the inescapable truth of the universe. Proclaim. Listen, you slovenly bimbo bitch cop, don't you know who I am? Some paltry, nothing disguise have you buffaloed? I'm the one you've been seeing in every news story for the past 3 days. You and half the world, Aretha baby. Proclaim. I planned and executed the crime of the century so perfectly. I'm already bigger than John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Juan Corona. Everything went right until the rich little blue boy got sick on me. Proclaim. Look real close. Take a good look at me. Be a goddamn hero for once in your life. Be something besides a fat black zero on the freeway of love. Look at me, will you? Look at me! She handed back his change. Merry Christmas, sir. Gary Sinigi shrugged. Merry Christmas back at you, he said. As he pulled away from the blinking lights of the toll booth, he imagined the policewoman with one of those smiling, have-a-nice-day heads on her. He mind-pictured a whole country full of those smiley balloon faces. It was happening, too. It was getting worse than the invasion of the body snatchers, actually. Drove him crazy if he thought about it, which he tried not to do. Country of smiling balloon heads. He loved Stephen King, identified with his weirdness, and wished the King would write about all the smiley fools in America. He could see the dust jacket for King's masterpiece. Balloon heads. 40 minutes later, Sinigi pulled the trusty Saab off Route 413 in Crisfield, Maryland. He accelerated down the rutted dirt road to the old farmhouse. He had to smile, had to laugh at this point. He had them so completely fooled and bamboozled, completely turned inside out. So far, they didn't know which way was up, down, or sideways. He already had the Lindbergh thing topped, didn't he? Now it was time to pull the mat out from under all the balloon heads again. Chapter 22. It was definitely showtime. A Federal Express courier had arrived at the FBI offices just before 10:30 on the morning of the 26th of December. He delivered the new message from the son of Lindbergh. We were called back to the crisis room on the 2nd floor. The whole FBI staff seemed to be in there. This was it, and everybody knew it. Moments later, Special Agent Bill Thompson from Miami rushed in. He brandished one of those familiar-looking delivery service envelopes. Thompson carefully opened the orange and blue envelope in front of the entire group. He's going to let us see the message, only he's not going to read it to us, Jeb Klebner from the Secret Service cracked under his breath. Sampson and I were standing there with Kleppner and Jesse Flanagan. Oh, he doesn't want all the heat on this one, Jesse predicted. He'll share with us this time. Thompson was ready, up at the front. I have a message from Gary Sinigi. It goes as follows. There's the number 1. Thompson read the message. Then, spelled out in letters, 10 million. On the next line, the number 2. Then the words, Disney World, Orlando, the Magic Kingdom. Next line, the number 3. Then, park at Pluto 24. Go across Seven Seas Lagoon on the ferry, not the monorail. 12:50 p.m. today. This will be finished by 1:15. Last line, Detective Alex Cross will deliver the ransom. Alone. It's signed, Son of Lindbergh. Bill Thompson looked up immediately. His eyes searched the crisis room. He had no trouble finding me in the audience. I can absolutely guarantee that his shock and surprise were nothing compared to mine. A hit of adrenaline had already mainlined its way into my system. What the hell did Senigi want with me? How did he know about me? Did he know how badly I wanted his ass now? There's no attempt at any negotiation. Special Agent Scorse began to make a fuss. Senigi just assumes we're going to deliver the 10 million. He does, I spoke up, and he's right. It's ultimately the family's call how and when a kidnap ransom gets paid. The Dunns had instructed us to pay Senigi unconditionally. Senigi had probably guessed as much. That was undoubtedly the main reason why he'd chosen Maggie Rose. But why had he chosen me? Standing at my side, Sampson shook his head and muttered, "The Lord, he sure does work in mysterious ways." A half-dozen cars were waiting for us in the sun-baked parking lot behind the Bureau building. Bill Thompson, Jesse Flanagan, Kleppner, myself, and Sampson traveled in one of the FBI sedans. The securities and money went with us. Detective Alex Cross will deliver the ransom. The money had been put together late the previous night. It was a tremendously complex deal to get it accomplished so quickly, but Citibank and Morgan Stanley had cooperated. The Dunns and Gerald Goldberg had the power to get what they wanted, and had obviously exerted great pressure. As Senigi had requested, 2 million of the ransom was in cash. The rest was in small diamonds and securities. The ransom was negotiable, and also very portable. It fit into an American Tourister suitcase. The trip from downtown Miami Beach to the Opa-locka West Airport took about 25 minutes. The flight would take another 40. That would get us into Orlando at approximately 11:45 a.m. It would be tight. We can try to put a device on Cross. We listened as Agent Scorse talked over the radio to Thompson. Portable radio transmitter. We've got one on board the plane.
I don't like that very much, Jerry, Thompson said.
I don't like it either, I said from the back seat. An understatement. No bugs. That's out. I was still trying to understand how and why Senigi had picked me. It didn't make sense. I thought that he might have read about me in the news coverage back in Washington. He had some good reason, I knew. There could be little or no doubt about that. There'll be unbelievable crowds at that park, Thompson said once we were on board a Cessna 310 to Orlando. That's the obvious reason he's chosen the Disney park. Lots of parents and kids at the Magic Kingdom, too. He just might be able to blend in with Maggie Dunn. He may have disguised her as well. The Disney park fits into his pattern for big, important icons, I said. One theory in my notebooks was that Senigi might have been an abused child himself. If so, he'd have nothing but rage and disdain for a place like Disney World, where good little kids get to go with their good mommies and daddies. We've already got ground and aerial surveillance on the park, Scorse contributed. Pictures are being piped into the crisis room in Washington right now. We're also filming Epcot and Pleasure Island, just in case he pulls a last-minute switch. I could just imagine the scene at the FBI crisis room on 10th Street. As many as a couple of dozen VIPs would be crowded in there. Each of them would have his own desk and a closed-circuit TV monitor. The aerial photography of Walt Disney World would be playing on all the monitors at once. The room's big board would be filled with facts. Exactly how many agents and other personnel were converging on the park at that moment. The number of exits. Every roadway in or out. Weather conditions. Size of the day's crowd. Number of Disney security people.